Today, I'll be breaking down all the drama that's gone down at UFC 314, the crazy press conference, a near fight between Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopes, weight misses, back and forth between Bryce Mitchell and Jean Silva, and get into all of the juicy details. So, let's start with the most dramatic of scenes at the press conference. Volkanovski in the middle looking like a school kid with his parents arguing above him. The two boys pointing at each other for what felt like 10 minutes straight. And I shall give you the context as to actually what happened between them. So there was a picture about a month ago where they were chilling together. They seemed pretty happy and it seemed pretty cordial. Clearly a lot has changed. Clearly, a lot has changed because there is a certain man, and I shall give you his name. He goes by the name of Marcus Beltran, former UFC fighter and someone on Diego Lopes's team. And this isn't 100% confirmed, but I believe he assaulted someone. It isn't clear whether it's physically or verbally on the team of Yair Rodriguez. So there's been underlying beef for a little while. Not necessarily between the pair, but between the teams. So it was just almost passed on, which is not really too uncommon, and it's fairly standard practice in the MMA world, to be perfectly honest, all this type of craziness. So the two men stood up and started going at each other and essentially just was calling each other expletives. But what they were also doing is potentially teeing up one of the juiciest fights at 145 pounds now, because if Saturday goes one of two ways, we could be looking at an enormous fight. The first option is that Yair Rodriguez goes and wins in spectacular fashion and Diego Lopes does the same thing. Now we're looking at a massive title fight, and you can argue amongst yourselves whether Yair deserves it. Is Evloev going to get sidestepped? 100%. This is the UFC. See what I did there? It's all about narratives. And if you've got a star like Rodriguez who goes out there and puts on a show, and then you've got Diego Lopes, and part of the squabble was around the fact that Yair was saying, "You're not Mexican" to Diego Lopes. So could that tee up a massive fight on a pay-per-view for UFC Noche? 100%. Alternatively, if they go out there and both lose, it still makes a ton of sense to make that matchup. So that's a fun one, and that's one that we should look forward to. And it's been a while since we've had something juicy at the press conference. Usually they start late, terrible questions, and then not much action. And I understand it. The fighters that are going on stage, it's not necessarily their fault because they're cutting weight, they're dehydrated, and they're being asked the same things that they've been asked for the last 6 weeks. So it's not necessarily them, but I just feel like the magic's been lost a little bit on the press conferences. But this just pulled it right back where it needs to be, which leads us into the next portion of tea, and that is Bryce Mitchell and Jean Silva. And the first thing I have to say, Jean Silva did not hit the mark on the early press conferences with the Globe. Just didn't find it funny. And for a little bit of context, he was alluding to a joke because Bryce Mitchell, of course, is a flat earther. So he brings a globe and he holds it up. And I like the idea of the props. I like the idea of the effort, but he just tried a little bit too hard and it did fall a little bit flat. And by the way, I don't think it's easy to try and communicate jokes in different languages. I will say that. Props to him for trying and props to him for building up the fight. I like that angle, but from an execution point of view, didn't land. Did not land. And this time he walks into the press conference and he starts barking and he tries to get some crowd engagement. Again, I like the idea. However, if the execution is not there with crowd engagement, it gets very awkward very quickly. No one barked and no one joined in. The last time Bryce hit him with the line of, "You're barking up the wrong tree." This time hits him with the line of, "I've had to put a lot of dogs down in my days and they've all got one thing in common. They squeal before they die," which I thought, off the top of the dome in a press conference, was a very smooth line. And we have to speak about how the media have then portrayed that snapshot. Because firstly, what I want to say is whatever you think of these fighters as people is somewhat irrelevant. And if you are looking at the Bryce Mitchells and the Jean Silvas of the world to recenter your moral compass, more fool you. More fool you. That's on you. Like, if you're going to these people for political advice and listening to their ideas on politics and the way that the world should run, for good or bad, that's on you. That is not what they are there to do. They are there to fight. The rest of it around it is a circus show. It's the WWE and it's set up for entertainment. Now, I'm not saying that, with that being said, I encourage all the things that get said. No, of course not. There are ways that I wouldn't go about it, and I think there's stuff that you should just maybe not touch upon. But that's me. That's me. And who am I to tell them how to navigate this industry, this crazy industry? Because let's be realistic, all these crazy things, they're encouraged. That's why Dana White came out and said Bryce Mitchell's an idiot for making those comments previously about the one who should not be named. But tune in and you'll watch him get knocked out. I mean, we are quite literally living in the world of WWE now. They have never been tied more closely, in my opinion. Secondly, as I was saying about the media, they did take it wildly out of context, because Bryce Mitchell was very, very clear of saying wild dogs and coyotes, when they come to my farm and they harm my livestock and harm my family, then I have to take care of that. Completely different to what a lot of people were making it out to sound like. He just walks up to people's gardens and puts down their dogs. Little Labrador Sally and little flipping pug Michael. And he actually does have a little French bulldog as well. It's super cute. I posted a video of him hitting pads with him this week. So I didn't love that. I didn't love that. If you're going to present what people have said and be shocked and outraged, at least provide the right context, especially in a world like today where all we do is headline read, and we do have little context, and we do just have random snapshots and sound bites, and we're all guilty of doing it and absorbing it, because who has the time to go in and find all of the context to all of these conversations? Not a lot of people. But I digress. The story develops when Jean Silva gets on the scales and misses weight on the first attempt, and he's at 146 pounds. And we can't ignore the fact that that isn't the first time that he's missed weight either. But if you go out there and starch people and make a good performance, people seem to quickly forget. But he comes back with the curtain. DC was on the commentary giving him a few tips of how he used to navigate the curtain back in his day, or the towel when it was him. He makes the weight on the second attempt after being given an hour, and then just goes absolutely crazy on Bryce Mitchell. Now, whatever side of the fence you are sitting on, and however you think this fight is going, this is phenomenal entertainment. Let's be real. The UFC has felt so flat recently, so flat. Flat matchups, flat narratives, UFC stars not really building or bubbling, so there hasn't been a ton of excitement in the UFC world. And there's a lot of sports around combat at the moment, not necessarily putting on the biggest fights in combat sports with the biggest names, but putting on a lot of good matchups. Boxing's doing phenomenal things. Even ONE FC is putting on some ridiculous matchups almost every week at this point. So the UFC really needed this. They really needed this. And it comes to Saturday now. They need big performances and they need everyone to deliver, because that anticipation is very much there. The socials are bubbling. Everyone's getting hyped. It's in a cool spot like Miami. There's a lot of attention being drawn to it. Now, the fighters just have to go out and deliver. So let me know in the comments what you thought about the press conference and what you thought about the fight week build up as well, because in my opinion, it's been pretty fun so far. And as always, keep it casual.